Hello, my fellow busy people. Finding time to study languages is always hard, especially after a long day at work or school. Sometimes you just want to do anything but study more. Personally, I haven't really had much time to study because work has always been pretty busy and the weather has been really nice outside, so I kind of wanted to make the most of that and do things outside before it gets freezing cold. But at the same time, I definitely don't want to give up on my languages or lose any of the progress that I made. So if you're finding less and less time to study, less and less motivation to study, I hope that these tips and study plan can help you. I usually end my day pretty late, so after eating dinner, there's really not much time to do anything. So if you're in a similar boat, then maybe you really don't have 2 or 3 or 4 hours a day to study, and instead you only have an hour or maybe only even half an hour. For beginners, I would recommend spending 1/3 of your time on vocab and 2/3 of your time on grammar and grammar exercises. If you decide to study for 30 minutes, then that means 10 minutes of vocab review and 20 minutes of grammar study. If you want an hour-long study session, it'll be 20 minutes of vocab, 40 minutes of grammar. If you feel like your vocabulary is lacking or you just are kind of tired of grammar, of course you can adjust the split, but just make sure that you're still learning grammar, even if it's not as fun, because especially at a beginner level, knowing the basic grammar structures is really, really important, so make sure not to neglect it. For learning and reviewing vocabulary, I like to use Anki, but there are other resources like Wanikani and Quizlet if you don't really like Anki. So Anki has an app on their phone, but I usually just go to the mobile website when I'm using it on my phone. It's super simple in terms of the features, but I think it does what it needs to do. For grammar, I would study 1 to 3 chapters or lessons and then spend time doing exercises. So a great beginner textbook that I used is Genki. If you're looking for an online resource, then Tae Kim's grammar guide is also really useful, and it's split into lessons as well. And make sure that you're also taking time to put in what you've learned into practice. You can either do the exercises that the textbook has, or there's also a lot of online sites with grammar exercises. This website called Wasabi has a lot of exercises with answers.
Making offers. ましょうか Shall I open it? 私が開けましょうか Shall I buy it? 私が買いましょうか
There's also a website called Visualizing Japanese Grammar. It's another site with some good grammar quizzes as well. But you'll notice that the website is kind of really outdated in terms of style. I mean, if it works, it works, right? For intermediate learners, in addition to vocabulary and grammar, I would also make time for immersion. You could either do an equal split between the three, or maybe spend half your time on immersion and then the other half on either vocabulary or grammar review. Because with immersion, you're definitely getting exposure to vocabulary and grammar. Recently, I've been doing like 30 minutes of Anki vocabulary reviews and then spending the other 30 minutes reading some manga. As an intermediate learner or even a high beginner, I think immersion is definitely something that should not be neglected. That's kind of why I don't feel as bad not studying so much grammar, because at this point I kind of already have a decent handling on the common grammar patterns, so I feel like it's just as helpful, or maybe even more helpful, honestly, to like read Japanese materials or listen to Japanese being spoken. And I think, if you come across something that you don't quite remember while you're immersing, then you can look up the grammar point, just Google it or whatever textbook you have, that works too, which will help you kind of remember it, take it from the context and drive it back in your brain. This study plan is pretty simple, but as you can see, the main building blocks of learning Japanese are all incorporated, but it's also very flexible. When life gets busy, there's just not really any time to sit down for hours and study every single thing. So you definitely have to spend your time efficiently and prioritize what needs work. Also, you will notice that I didn't mention anything about doing this every day, although it would definitely be really good to be extremely consistent and steady for an hour every day, but sometimes you really just can't fit a study session into your schedule, or you just don't feel like it. Me all the time, and that's okay. But hopefully having this semi-structured plan and the fact that it is a relatively short time commitment will help motivate you as well to keep learning Japanese. Wait, you thought it was over? Yeah, so I saved the ultimate tip for last because I do this all the time. Probably more than I should, but I do it anyway. And also, it's probably a little bit controversial. When you have a long day, sometimes you feel like you need to sort of max out on any potential time for studying. For me, I often do my vocabulary reviews while I'm watching TV. And sometimes I even do Japanese vocabulary reviews while watching a Korean drama, which seems like a terrible idea. And sometimes I immerse in TV while doing some of my other work. I think you're definitely not going to be getting the full benefits of Japanese study, and normally I would definitely be against this because, as science has really proven, your brain cannot really multitask. But honestly, for me, sometimes it's just a good compromise between study and play, and it just keeps me going.